We are joined by our intrepid technical support engineer, Tom Traegler, who will be our subject matter expert for today. Tom is great with these Galaxy Vision plans. Again, I am your host, moderator, MC, other dude on the call, whatever you want to call me, Bill D'Angelo. And we are also being joined today, and thank you so much for joining us, Emily Smith, the marketing director over at Shoreline Sightseeing. So once again, thank you for joining today, and thank you for taking part in this presentation. Um, we'll be bringing them in just a moment. Before we dive in, though, again, remember the chat is open. The Q&A is open, so please feel free to use those tools. How we'll be running today's webinar, again, right now, the mics are muted, the cameras are off. We're going to hit a Q&A section a little later. And in that Q&A section, we're going to open up the mics. We're going to open up the cameras so you can jump on and ask your questions. If you are not comfortable jumping on microphone or on camera, I totally get it. I'm completely shy like that too. I wouldn't want to either. That's okay. We also have a Q&A bubble you'll see at the top of your screen, right next to the chat bubble. You can drop a question in the Q&A and you can get somebody else, probably me, to read the question for you so you don't have to jump on the mic if you're not comfortable with that. So feel free to use the Q&A to ask a question. We'll respond to you in the Q&A, or we'll bring it in when we get to that section of the session. And again, we'll also be opening up the mics and the video cameras at that time for you. Additionally, the chat is open. You may have seen a quick hello in there, and I'll just do a quick hello again. So the chat is available to you. That's going to be non-moderated, so feel free to jump in there and have side discussions as well. But we have all these communications tools available to you. We want to really encourage you to communicate and participate and join us in today's session. And yeah, with that, let's go to the chat. Let's practice that chat. And I just want to see who here has already had a Galaxy Vision plan or knows what a Galaxy Vision plan is. And I'm getting virtual hands raised. Thank you, Marcelo. Fantastic. Another way to communicate. We also have our very fun reactions. You can feel free to use those too. All kinds of communications tools. Stephen as well has had a Galaxy Vision plan. Great. So a number of people. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So it's not a new concept to everybody here. That's awesome. So hopefully, if you've heard of them or if you've had them done before, you'll learn something new today, or something will ring true to an experience you had with your Galaxy Vision plan. And again, when we get to Q&A and we open it up, we'd love to hear about your experience and what it did for you as well. Yeah, so with that, I guess before we get into it, I just have to say this. I'm sorry, but the Galaxy Vision plan, I'm going to step on Tom's toes here a little bit because I'm going to talk a little bit about it. And one of the reasons I like the idea so much, to me, Galaxy is a great tool. Of course, I work here. It's expected. But it's a tool, and it's one tool in your tool belt. If you were a carpenter and electrician, you wouldn't be necessarily the world's biggest expert on impact drills. It's a tool in your tool belt. It's not the thing you live and breathe every day. Well, we're those people that live and breathe impact drills. We're the ones that are obsessed with that tool. So there might be things you didn't realize were available to you to help you in using that tool. I love it when I'm doing training and we're having a discussion. This happened not too long ago. I was on with a zoo customer, and we were talking about some of the functionality in Galaxy, and they're talking about how they struggle to bring up a sale where they have 2 tours that the guest wants to book at the same time. I'm like, wait a minute. There's a button you could put right on the screen that clears the event, and then when you hit the second tour, you get to pick again, and they don't have to jump through hoops to figure out how to ring up 2 tours in the same transaction. And it was one of those aha moments, and it was fantastic. And it came about because we had somebody who was knee deep in the tool and those who were using it just day to day normally, but didn't necessarily know everything that was in there. And when those two minds are brought together, it just makes these aha moments. And that's what a Galaxy Vision plan is. And I'm carrying on too long, so I'm going to stop. And I'm going to turn it over to Tom before I steal any more of his thunder. So Tom Traegler, I just want to thank you again for joining us. and welcome you to kick off the rest of our discussion and give your presentation on the Galaxy Vision Plan. And again, folks, feel free, Q&A, chat, go ahead and use them. And we will transition into open mic and open Q&A when we get through our main presentation. So, Tom, with that probably overly caffeinated introduction, I hand it to you.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I was sitting here thinking I might not even have to say anything. Bill just might do this all for me. But anyway, as Bill said, my name is Tom Tregler. I work on the managed services team. I am one of the people who would be performing a vision plan with customers who are requesting them. Up on the screen right now, I have the definition that we have, or I should say the description we have of it from our knowledge base article. It's a lot of words. I'm not going to sit here and read it all out to you, but I am going to go through some of what we do here. There's a QR code right on there that will take you to the knowledge base article that gives you a little bit of a description about vision. And as always, if you have questions about it, reach out to your CSM. They can get on the phone. They can explain it all. They can get one of us to help talk through it if you have any questions about it. But hopefully when I'm done with my piece of this, you have no questions about it and you just know what you need to do. So like I said, there's a lot of words here. I'm not going to read them all, but I am going to tell you what this all means, right? So essentially, what Galaxy Vision is we're going to take an experienced member of the Gateway team, typically someone from our managed services team, and they're going to meet with the customer and the team at that customer, right? We'll get into a little bit later who that team is. But while we're there, we're going to talk about a couple of things, right? We're going to look at how you're using Galaxy right now. We're going to talk about how you want to be able to use Galaxy. We're going to talk about your pain points. We're going to talk about business needs that might not be met with how you're using Galaxy right now. And we're going to try to see how we can meet those business needs. And then we're going to talk about best practices, right? So when I talk about business needs a little bit, a lot of times that's just, I have this thing I want to do and I don't know how to do it in Galaxy, those types of things. So when we come on site to a customer, or actually before we get to that, the next question we have here is why, right? Why should I do this? Well, I can come up with a bunch of reasons why you should do this, but here's really the top 5. One of them is new features. There's a lot of things that we add into releases of Galaxy. It's not just we're giving you a version because we might have a fix or two in here, right? Like there's a lot of features we add, and you may upgrade every time, right? You might be on a great path to upgrade once a year, twice a year. But just upgrading doesn't really get you those new features if you don't know that they exist and you don't know how to use them. So sometimes you're not sure, you don't know about this feature, and this is a way where we can look at what you're doing and say, hey, this new feature or this feature that was added 2 years ago might help you out. The next one, which kind of goes along with new features, is I didn't know Galaxy could do that, right? Sometimes we create something, we create a PLU in a specific way, we create an item, and we just keep copying that. And when we need to make something new, we just use the old thing as a basis without sort of exploring to see what else is in there that we could do. So in a lot of cases, we may get 3 or 4 questions and we say, well, we could do that in Galaxy. You know, all you've got to do is configure A, B, and C, and we can get you there. Next one is efficiencies and best practices, right? Part of the reason we're working with you is that we've worked with a bunch of other customers. So we've seen best practices from different industries that we can maybe help you engage with, or even just tweak some of the practices you have right now to make them a little bit more efficient, right? If we can come up with a way, like Bill had mentioned earlier, right? If we can come up with a way to save you 3 or 4 clicks at the point of sale screen, you know, at the end of the day, is that 5 or 10 minutes of saved time, right? And we know at the point of sale screen, you want each customer transaction to go quickly and smoothly as possible. So we're going to look for best practices there. And then bug fixes, right? In some cases, you may have a workaround from years ago that you're still using because we had to put it in place for something. Well, we fixed that. Let's get away from the workarounds. Let's get you back in using Galaxy the way it's intended to work. You know? And finally, we have to get away from the because that's the way we always did it, right? This sort of brings all of those other pieces together in one. Hey, I've inherited Galaxy from a previous system admin, and this is how things were always set up, right? Maybe that still works. Maybe it doesn't work for you. But when we're looking at this, we can start to evaluate how you're using Galaxy and the best way to do it. And I'm just going to give a perfect example coming up next, is that I've been a system admin since 2007, right? I did my very first training, and I'll prove it to you right here, 2007. I did my system admin training then. That's a lot of time and a lot of changes in Galaxy. So if we've got a lot of customers who have been doing things the same way, like if I still set things up the same way I did back then, I would be missing out on a lot, you know? So that's really a big part of it, is make sure we're taking full advantage of everything that Galaxy has to offer. Moving on a little bit, where can we do this? So we have customers who want us to come on site, and we may spend 2-3 days, maybe a full week with the customer on site, and we meet with all the different departments there. We'll get into that on the next slide. But there are other customers that are like, no, you know what, I don't want to bring you on site for whatever reason. Can we do this remotely? And the answer is yes, we can do it remotely. I've done a remote one with a big customer that lasted over 2.5 weeks in total time, because we were sort of meeting every other day with a different department. I've also gone on site to a customer, and we bang it out in a day or two and go through and meet with all the different departments at that time, and go through all those things that we talked about. So I just saw Bill's, is anyone impressed that Tom still has certificates popped up? Actually, that's the one of 2 that I have, Bill. I have my web store admin certificate as well for November of that year or August of that year. But getting into my next slide is who should be involved. So we often think of Galaxy as just a point of sale system, and you think, okay, who is using Galaxy? Well, I have my front gate ticket sales. Maybe I have membership. Maybe I have a couple of these departments that have logins, but it's not always just the people that have logins, right? We've got tons of different departments that are impacted by Galaxy, but may not use it, right? For example, marketing. Marketing should always be involved, like marketing, or if you have a PR department, they should always be involved, especially when it comes to the web store, right? Like they're going to have a big impact on how that web store looks. I've worked with a lot of customers. I've worked with my own web stores, and I never assumed that I would know the best way to market my product, right? I may know the best way to configure it, but I don't know the best way to market it. And that's where those guys come in. IT departments, right? So if IT is not the admin, and a lot of customers are like that, right? Like you might have the admin as someone who sits in your visitor services or your admissions departments. But IT has a very important role, because even if they're not the direct admin, they're managing your infrastructure, right? So they're making sure that all the network connections are right and the firewalls are set, and everybody's got the right permissions to do the things they need to do in Galaxy. So it is important to involve IT, even if they're not your system admins. The obvious ones, right? Visitor services, retail, food and beverage, group sales, education, and membership. They're all departments who are probably using Galaxy on a day-to-day basis. But then you have finance, and finance may or may not use Galaxy directly, but finance is probably outside of admissions and anybody who's making the sales. They're probably the ones most impacted by Galaxy, right? How did we set up our chart of account? Did we set up our chart account back in 2007 and maybe there's a better way to do things now? How are my FOPs set up? Like all of these pieces that are very important to all the other departments. And they're the things that as a system admin, you're not necessarily thinking of, right? Like I know finance needs to be involved, but I don't know what finance wants out of it. So it's very important when we're doing these vision plans that we're involving all the departments that not just physically touch and go into Galaxy and make changes and do those things, but all the departments that are impacted by Galaxy. And now the next step is how do we do this, right? So we're going to start off, if you wanted to engage in a vision plan, it would start and end with the customer success manager. Reach out to your customer success manager, start talking about the plan. They will get one of us involved, usually someone from the managed services team. We call this resource the Pathfinder. The customer service manager and the Pathfinder will then work with you to schedule some time. Like I said earlier, it's typically 2 to 3 days, but you might use a whole week, or you might be, like I said, I had the remote one that was scheduled over 2.5 weeks, right? You might schedule that out, have all individual meetings with different departments. So it's going to start with the customer success manager. After we do the meetings, the customer success manager will be the one that can work with you and follow up on any things afterwards. How do I plan for it, right? So if you've already decided we're going to do this, we've reached out to the customer success manager. They're going to work with the customer. They're going to have someone who's the main point of contact there, right? They'll work with you to have you set up the meetings, make sure that all the proper stakeholders are lined up, right? So they'll kind of going back to that screen I showed about the different departments, make sure we've got everybody from these departments involved. They'll work with you to determine what specific areas you want to focus on, right? So for example, we had retail, we had food and beverage up there. Your retail team might not use Galaxy, touch Galaxy at all, right? You might not even have a food and beverage team. So they'll just work with you to help figure out who the appropriate people are that should be in the room. They'll prepare anything that needs to get sent to help you contact your attendees, explaining what it is. We have a nice couple of write-ups. So you as the system admin don't have to explain what we're doing to the rest of the organization. We can give you that information to help you explain what vision is and why we're doing it. And you can share that with the rest of the organization. Then the Pathfinder, so somebody like myself would work with you. We would either visit the website or the web store, take a look at those things ahead of time. We'll review open service desk issues that you might have so that we can prepare for anything that might come up during the meetings. And if you have specific areas you'd like to focus on, that's where you'll communicate those through the customer success manager, and they'll let us know about that. So for example, I had one recently where they really just wanted to focus on a few areas, right? They wanted to focus on maybe group sales and admission and membership. And we sort of do like a mini vision, right? Where we say, okay, well, let's just focus on these aspects, and then maybe we can come back later and focus on the other aspects. And then the last part of the planning will be for the customer point of contact, right? So that might be a system admin or some other administrator on the customer side of things, right? They'll help coordinate for scheduling, right? We're going to need a place to have these meetings. If it's going to be a physical visit, right? If I'm coming to your organization, we'll need to make sure that you've scheduled a place for us to hold the meetings. You might have to, you might determine any specific areas you would like to focus on, talk to some of these departments ahead of time. And then just somebody there to greet the Gateway team and act as the liaison, right? So we on the Gateway side may only know a few of your employees because those are the ones that we interact with. So we'll just need somebody there to help do introductions and make sure things run smoothly. During the meetings, these are typically the types of people that will be in the meetings for each department. So for example, if we think of that honeycomb I had up there, that all the different departments, if we're now doing the admissions meeting, we'll want some leadership from that department, right? So we'll want the people who sort of make the decisions about the direction you want the system to go in. The Galaxy point of contact would be, again, probably the system admin of your organization. We'll want the customer success manager, the Pathfinder, but we also want some of your super users, right? We want those people who are using Galaxy day in and day out, because they're the ones who are really going to have a lot of good feedback, right? They're going to be the ones that are saying, it takes me a little bit too long I'm going to use Bill's example again, right? It takes me a little bit too long to add these 2 events to a transaction, right? Or it takes me a little bit too long to find this customer contact that I need to find every time I'm looking and searching in an order. Those are the guys that we really want to speed up their time for. Help them out the most. While we're in the meetings, we're going to do a couple of things, right? So we're going to make introductions. We're going to capture the names and titles of all the attendees. We want to be able to know who we're going back to if we do have any follow-up questions. We're going to set the tone by introducing what we're trying to accomplish with each meeting. So even though we may send an email out ahead of time to all the attendees to say, this is what we're doing, we want to make sure that we set the sort of the I wouldn't say ground rules, but set the tone of the meeting. And then really it becomes open, right? We discuss whatever topics about Galaxy that they want to discuss. I usually use these questions here as conversation starters. So if you think of what problems am I running into that I think the software should be able to solve? What things seem harder than they should when using Galaxy? What do you want to offer your guests, right? Or how do you want to engage with them that you think the system is holding you back from? And then what are the things that I wish the software did that it currently doesn't do, right? So a lot of those questions really start to lead into the conversation and get us talking about how you use the system. And I will say most of the times when we're having these conversations, it really becomes, well, let's change a little bit of the business practice, or let's change a slight bit of configuration, and we can get you where you need to go. But I will say this, that we're not going to be making changes on the fly, right? And I'll get into it in a little bit more in the next slide, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a step back after these meetings, spend a little bit of time, and it might be like if for example, I went and did a vision, I might then start reaching out to a couple of people inside of Gateway. I might reach out to like a Bill or a Matt Steckel to get their ideas on some of these things. I might look at your issue and say, oh, you know what? I have an idea, but maybe Bill knows a better way to do this, or maybe Matt knows a better way to do this. And then we'll come up with a report with all of our recommendations. All right, so let's get into a little bit of the post-meeting now. So we'll review the notes. We'll come up with this report, right? And the report will have different sections for these. We might list some configuration changes. We might recommend additional Reporting Plus reports. Or maybe you don't use Reporting Plus and reporting is a big thing, and it might be a recommendation to get Reporting Plus. We might recommend some training, right? So it could be that there's a new system admin or there's a new box office manager, and that box office manager just doesn't know everything that they need to know. So we might recommend some training. We might recommend best practices, right? It might be something that's not within Galaxy, but that we see other customers do that we think would be really helpful. Enhancements, right? So it might come to the point where we say, you know what? We think that this is a good enough scenario that we might need to recommend an enhancement because we don't have all of the things that we could change to get you 100% there. So we might recommend an enhancement, or we might just recommend additional modules, right? So for example, if your pain point is that my call center staff is so overwhelmed because we're getting so many calls, and it's that time of year where schools call up and they have all these requests and we just need a way to speed them up, we might say, hey, let's get group sales on the web, right? Let's get an additional module out there that will help you, and it'll speed up your time and then save time for your call center staff to do the things that they need to do. For example, like I had a customer and they have a lot of local schools. The local schools don't need to pay to go to their organization if they're within the city, right? But now they're spending all these hours a week on the phone booking these trips for these schools that are not going to pay them a dime. So our plan is, we haven't gotten there yet, but our plan is to shift them to group sales on the web. So this way now the call center can handle those calls that are people who are looking to pay for a trip, right? If they're looking to pay for a trip, you spend a little bit more time with them, you can help upsell them to a guided tour or something else that's going on, right? Maybe include a meal in those things. So we want to free up the time to spend on the paying customers and push the non-paying customers off to group sales on the web. And that's just where they want to dip their toe into group sales on the web to start. So that's a good example for that. Then what we'll do is that we'll meet with the customer success manager and a customer success engineer to review what we've found before we deliver this to you, right? So we'll go over it. We'll say, hey, I don't know, say it's Dan Sheehan, right? Might be our customer success manager. I might say, hey, Dan, here's the report from this customer. Let's look through it. These are the future projects maybe that we can do with them. It might be group sales on the web. It might be spending a couple of hours of configuration, right? And then you'll work with the customer success manager to come back and plan to make those changes, or plan to get somebody from managed services involved. It might be the same person that helped you with the recommendations. It might not be, right? We might say that, hey, I recommend making these changes to membership, maybe start using the online member portal, but then you get hooked up with maybe a Kevin Weand or Glenn McWilliams, right? To do that implementation, to get that member portal going. So the customer success manager will give you that information, and then just start planning and working with the customer and do a follow-up meeting to just start going through all of those necessary things. So that is my little bit on this. I'd like to open it up for Q&A if anybody's got any questions while I take a sip of my drink, because I did a lot of talking right now.
Thank you, Tom. So real quick, as Tom mentioned, we're going to open it up for questions at this point. So in just a moment, your microphones will be unmuted and your cameras will be live, so you can jump on and ask questions. We again still have that virtual hand raise if you want to go that route. I do want to start us off in the question realm with some questions that were posted to our Q&A. Thank you, Marcelo, for these. The first question that came up is, how often would you recommend a customer schedule a Galaxy Vision Plan engagement? Is it every 2 to 3 years, more or less?
So I think it might be on a case-by-case basis for the customer. I think 3 years is a good spot to do it. I do have a customer that does a quick one every year. Essentially, it's towards the end of their hours, as their hours are expiring for their tier hours. They just sort of want to say, hey, can somebody come in and just go over a couple of things? But I would say in general, I think 3 years is a good spot because usually you're not making too many big changes year to year. But I think once you hit 3 years, you've made enough bigger changes. You've sort of gone away from what you've done, or what sort of changes we've made, or maybe you enacted something or changed some processes. So I think 3 years is probably a really good spot to do it.
Okay. Thank you very much. The second question that was sent in, does the Galaxy Vision plan include Galaxy adjacent tools such as the Galaxy Contact Validation, otherwise known as Locate, or eGalaxy Fraud Prevention, otherwise known as Certify, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so those are the type of things that could come out of the recommendations. We've definitely recommended tools like Locate and Certify or Galaxy Contact Validation. We've definitely recommended those tools in the past, especially when it comes around membership, because we've gotten a lot of, hey, member data when they enter it in the web store isn't completely accurate. Some of, not accurate in that it's, a member can type the wrong email address, right? It's more inaccurate as in like, we're looking for some consistency, right? We want our membership database to be consistent with the way we're presenting street versus ST versus ST dot, things like that. So yeah, we've definitely come out with recommendations for those services as well as other services.
Thank you. And the third question that was posted to chat, and then once we get to this third question, again, those microphones are available, so jump on in right after and, let us know what you got. But the third question that was posted to our Q&A is, would the Galaxy Vision plan covers strike that, let me start over. Would the Galaxy Vision plan cover areas of the operation which are not currently, but could be operated with Galaxy, such as food and beverage, photo, etc.?
Yes, that is actually a really great use case for using the vision plan, right? Is to say, okay, we've got Galaxy, maybe we've had it for a few years, maybe we've had it for a long time, and we've got it, we've been using it for admissions and membership. And maybe we had a third party that was doing food and beverage, and it's time to sort of reevaluate, see if we can combine that into Galaxy. Those are great uses of Galaxy Vision. And even things that might not be traditionally part of Galaxy, I see the mention there of photo, right? Maybe it's a third party that does a photo opportunity. And we can start work with trying to figure out a way, it might kick off another project that says, okay, can we get into some sort of API with this company, or come up with some ideas to integrate with somebody like that. But yes, those are definitely good uses of a Galaxy Vision. This thing is, the sky is the limit, right? If you have it and if you think you can ask the question, just ask us the question. And we'll work our best to get you into a good spot with it.
Yeah, and I kind of want to jump on this one a little too, because to me, they say creativity and inspiration are not something that just happens. It's a process. You got to work on it in order for things to happen. I feel the same way with having these aha moments with Galaxy, because, when we are organically working with you just on any old thing, something could come up that could be an aha moment. But to make those moments happen, it could happen so much better and so much more efficiently if we have a planned approach to have the right conversations to lead to those moments, to make those opportunities show themselves. And that's how I personally think of Galaxy Vision Plan, which is me just doing a lot of bantering, giving y'all time to take off the mute and ask a question. So that is a subtle hint. Oh, we do have one coming in on chat. Okay. Is this a list of available modules? I know. Oh, okay. So Lorena, sorry, is looking for a list of available modules. She knows which one she uses, but she's curious about the other ones out there and if we could use, if they could utilize them. So Lorena, that is an excellent question. I don't think we have a list available right now to put up during this presentation, but we can definitely have somebody follow up with you with that information.
Yeah, in general, when you have questions like that, those are the easy things to just reach out to your CSM, right? Reach out to your customer service manager. That's what they're there for. They can help guide you into the places. We do have some information from modules and things like that on the knowledge base. So you can explore the knowledge base a little bit. But yeah, definitely utilize your customer success manager. They are the ones that are your main conduit, right, to gateway ticketing.
Oh, and we have Sean Kramer, a member of our CSM team, who's seconding that they can definitely reach out to their CSM for assistance. So thank you for stepping up on that one, Sean, and volunteering. Okay, let's see if we have any other posted questions. I do have to warn you, we are looking for questions. If not, you're going to get dad jokes from Tom and I, and we are well rehearsed with this. It's not going to be pleasant for anyone. So just saying, feel free to jump on in.
So I do see another one out there about how this is billed. For
Catch.
for a vision plan, you can use your tier hours. So if you are a customer who has hours as part of your service tier and you're looking for a great way to use those hours, a vision plan is definitely a great way to do that. We could use the hours for the plan. We could use the hours for some of the follow-up work, right? If it turns out you want to work with us for a few hours to enact some of the things that we come up with vision. If not, then you would work with your customer success manager. They would get you an estimate on the amount of time it would take and go through all of those pieces with you there.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so with that, I think now's a good time to transition over. So thank you, everybody who submitted a question. Again, if you have more questions, please feel free, drop them in the Q&A, drop them in the chat. We will keep an eye out. And if there are questions, if we have time at the end, we'll come back to more questions. Otherwise, we will reach out to you separately. So if you have something on the brain, don't hold it back. Go ahead and put it in there. And we'll get back to you one way or the other. So with that, what I am like to do now is I would like to bring in our esteemed guest, Emily Smith, the marketing director over at Shoreline Sightseeing. And Emily, I understand you had a Galaxy Vision plan pretty recently, just in the fall with the illustrious Matt Steckel, correct?
Yes, he came to our location to talk to all of our different departments that use Galaxy in September.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. So what I'm going to do is I am going to step out of the way and let you and Tom have a bit of a discussion. And again, thank you for joining us.
Hello, Emily.
Hi, Tom.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your vision plan. You said you did one just a few months ago with Matt. He came on site. What made you want to engage in the Galaxy Vision plan?
Yep. So we've been using Galaxy since 2008. And we did a database refresh in like 2014. Our IT, basically our head of IT was our system admin. We were starting to make some changes in that department, and we had a brand new finance department, and we just felt like things could be easier. We didn't quite know what, so we brought in, we talked to Dan and asked if we could get a Galaxy Vision going.
All right, so you brought up IT and finance. Who else, what other departments do you have there that are involved with Galaxy that were part of Vision?
So I was a part of it as marketing. And then we have sales and operations who do all of the ticket scanning and probably work the most with Galaxy in our call center as well. Our sales and operations teams are across different locations. They work with different computers and tablets and kiosks, so they have different perspectives on it, and they sell different products. So Matt went to every location to talk to the leads over there to see what their unique challenges were.
And when you said went to every location, you're all not in one office building sitting off of a pier, right?
No, we had a lot of picnic table meetings. We're in different spread out throughout the city. So he went to each spot and saw their challenges, that looked at the tablets that they had. There were places that had different internet connectivity issues, so we had to get ideas to make things more efficient in those spots than they were when we're hard connected. Things pull up a lot faster.
Yeah. I looked over your report because, like you said, Matt, you worked with Matt to do it. So before we had the opportunity to do this, I wanted to look over your report and get familiar with one of the things. There were over 50 configuration recommendations. Was that more changes than you had expected?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. It was pretty overwhelming, I think, at first, but it was kind of nice to see it. It's better when it's laid out like that with steps that we could take slow. Like, we don't have to do them all at once, but they're there for us instead of floating around in our heads. Like, we know something seems off and this could be better, but it was a lot. It's good to have them all there, even though there's 50 of them. So we've got our work cut out for us.
Have you decided to work on any or all of those so far?
Yes. So we're currently overhauling our like flattening our chart of accounts. So we've been on a 1-to-1 system. We had probably like 4,000 chart of accounts and then like PLUs. Yeah. So we've gotten it down. We talked to finance, who was new. So it was actually really helpful to clue finance in on this and make it so it's usable for them. We're down to about 55 chart of accounts now. So it's we're working on getting our PLUs down as well, but we've added attributes to the chart of accounts, the old ones, so we can get reports going. It's taken longer than we expected just because a lot of our reports were tied up into the old way we've had things set up. So we're getting there. But it will be more manageable for sure down the line.
Right, definitely. Especially knocking down that large number of chart of account.
Yeah.
Were there any quick wins? Were there any ones that you were able to just jump in, make a couple of quick changes, and now you smooth things out for a department?
Yeah, so we had things like military tickets now that we can add. I mean, I think this has been for a little while, but discounts can use item groups instead of just one ticket. So we added a bunch of tickets to there and applied a military discount instead of having different tickets that had rules attached to that. So ticket agents didn't really have to think through how many it was allowed to be applied to. Custom FOP menus. So we still had like cash as the number one form of payment on our sidebar when they're checking out. But we haven't used cash since 2020. So people are getting in the habit of using that to just issue tickets, but replacing that with like a zero balance form of payment has helped make life easier and just simplify the FOP menus a lot, as sped things up downstairs.
So did you start using the custom FOP menu?
Custom FOP menu, yeah.
Excellent.
So I'm sorry, I got to jump in with a quick question here because I like the custom FOP menus, and I'm going to get a little nerdy here. But are you also using EMV payment terminal like a Freedom Pay or Verifone Point?
Yeah, we're using Freedom Pay. So we took off the credit, like before they had to hit credit and then Freedom Pay, and we learned they can just hit Freedom Pay now. So that's wonderful.
Nice. Okay.
It seems small, but it's a good little step.
That, and with the custom FOP menus, you could also do little things like if you want to go to multi-payment with the traditional FOP menu, you'd have to go to other and then go to multi-payment mode. Whereas with the custom, you just have your Freedom Pay button and you can have your multi-payment button right there. So it's
right. Yeah,
it's kind of nice to have that control.
And
Okay,
we
sorry.
still have cash, but we hit it on the second other menu, just on the off chance we break the rules and take cash when we have to. It's good to have it there, but we don't want it top of mind for anyone. They were just using it to issue tickets and it became
Gotcha.
problematic.
Right. So do you see these as lasting changes then, right? These aren't just I need to get it out of the way, be able, like, this is a lasting change that's going to help you guys moving forward, right?
Yeah, they're definitely lasting changes. I think the biggest thing was getting all of the departments involved. So like sales and operations are using it the most, but they weren't in charge of how anything was really set up. So they had a lot of ideas of or what they wanted it to do. So now getting their feedback on that custom FOP menu and like what do you guys need to see and what would be easier. Having that communication really, I think, is what will keep these as lasting changes instead of just hoping it works. We're thinking it through.
And you just brought up other departments. So prior to Vision, right? Did you ever meet with the other departments, or did maybe not you, but your system admins, and did they ever like just meet to talk about Galaxy on a regular basis, or was it more just here's the requests?
It was more requests. Our system admin set everything up. And before like Connect and the internet and everything, it was a lot more straightforward. So I don't think there had to be as much communication with the different departments, but things got out of hand, like complicated pretty quick. So there wasn't really that open communication, or people just didn't know that they could have that input or what was available. I had also, prior to the Vision, had thought about working on our web store through marketing, and just knowing what's there and what's available to us was helpful because IT was in charge of that layout as well.
Do you see that now that you've had the Vision and you brought everybody together, do you see more communication within the departments?
I do. We actually, like finance, myself, and a couple people from like sales and operations, and then our head of IT currently, we have meetings like every week now just to, well, one, to get through all the Vision stuff, but just to make sure we're on the right track and making sure there's anything that we need changed, or if things, what's working and what's not working. So the communication related to Galaxy has been huge.
And now that you have this list, right? You've got this list of 50 plus recommendations, and you started working on some. What are the next steps that you're going to take? Have you prioritized this list and now you're working down the list, or?
Yeah, we're trying to get like our reports in line and still work on reducing our PLUs. That's probably like the biggest thing. And then once we do that, we'll probably reset and look at some more of those quick wins. Get a few more of those to build our confidence up, because this section's taking the longest. But yeah, we'll just keep re-looking at the list and prioritizing what will come next.
And
So-
go ahead.
I'm
Bill.
also we sent someone to training, and then I'll probably end up in training in August too. So we're getting people
Excellent.
trained.
Excellent. So I'm going to interrupt real quick. We have a question coming in from chat. Hi, Emily. Besides the quick wins, did the Vision plan recommendations help in determining a longer-term strategic plan involving the Galaxy system?
Yeah, I think the biggest longer term plan was our basically our overhaul of all of our PLUs. The longer term plan is just how much easier it's going to be to update pricing and keep our reports on track, make reports for operations and things like that. So the longer term part is taking the longest. I guess that makes sense. But there's definitely more of a plan for the future that's happening there to make sure it works out.
Understood. And I'm going to interject my own question. Sorry. But you had mentioned that you're executing, going down the list and kind of picking off the things that you feel will help you to grow and evolve what you're doing. Have you been able to take advantage of that report, that process, and all um, these new paths you're going down with your gateway representatives to kind of partner with you to help on that execution, and how has that worked out?
Yeah, while we're if we get stuck, which we do often, we'll reach out to Dan, and then he'll find someone for us to meet with to go over kind of, we're like, we have no idea how to implement this, so then we'll meet with a gateway, someone that knows way more than we do to help us figure out a way to implement the different pieces. Group
That's why
sales on the
everyone
web.
needs a Dan.
Yeah. Dan just gets all the questions from us now, so.
So I've got two more questions. I know we're starting to get a little close to the end here, but I've got two more questions I want to make sure we get in there. The first one is, what do you see as your biggest victory?
I think the communication between the different departments is probably the biggest victory. Mainly because it's opened up different, especially with like sales and operations, just different ideas of what they want to have, and then being able to implement that. If they're using it all the time, they know the pain points more than anyone. So having them be able to feel open and communicating those pain points, I think down the line will really help us solve problems and make Galaxy better.
And then my last question, and then, we've got more coming in the chat, but my last question to you is, what advice would you give another customer as they're preparing to engage in one of these vision plans?
I would say talk to all the departments that are going to be engaging in the vision plan, and let them know, like, to be completely honest and open. Matt probably, like, he heard a lot of the same things, I'm sure, but a lot of different things. But letting them know that the more open they are, the more positive change we can make, and actually make changes, than if they're just saying everything's fine, or if they're thinking that it's how it's always going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely will say, you just brought up one thing that you might hear the same thing from all the departments. And I could tell you for certain that I've gotten a lot of that too when I do these visions. And it's like 3 different departments all have the same issue, but they don't talk to each other. So they all don't know that they have the issue. And I've even come across a vision where one department had an issue and another department had that issue, but figured it out. And because they don't talk to each other, they didn't pass that along. So.
Yeah.
So because I'm slightly obsessed with this particular topic, it seems like the Galaxy Vision Plan is just as much about enabling the communication as it is coming up with solutions for these problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And just giving people ownership over the fact that if we can communicate, then things can actually change instead of just dealing with it year over year over year.
Okay, so thank you both. Before we wrap this up, I just want to give it one last chance for Q&A and the chat. Any more questions for Tom or Emily? Okay, so seems like we don't have anything come through. If we do, I will let you know. But Tom, Emily, thank you so much for your time today, for answering the barrage of questions, Emily. We really do appreciate the time and the effort. Hopefully you've heard through the session that, the Galaxy Vision Plan is something that we as an organization we strongly believe in, because communication is key. Opening up those channels of communication, which is part of the Galaxy Vision Plan, is a key component to making businesses flow better, and getting to know the challenges you have and how your tools can work for you is a major part of getting your operations to flow better. So hopefully you see the value in this as we do. With that, I'm going to transition here. Let me share my screen a little bit. Okay, so let me just, like I said, share my screen here real quick. So to wrap up today, a little bit of Administrata. First of all, thank you so much for participating, for your questions, your thoughts, your comments. Keep them coming. We want to continue to hear from you. Please continue to use the chat, continue to use the Q&A. Email us, marketing@gatewayticketing.com. If you have any other questions you didn't raise during the session today. If you want to participate, take part in one of our webinars, have an idea for one of our webinars, again, please feel free to reach out to us, marketing@gatewayticketing.com. Do stay tuned for the next edition in our webinar series, which will be in Q3. Again, please let us know if you want to participate, have an idea. We are open to all ideas. Also, on the things to look forward to, in addition to the next in the webinar series, don't forget coming up, we have the North America UGM this year in Atlanta. So please reach out, let us know, come and join us. UGM is always a great time, lots of things to learn. Again, all about that communication and just sharing of ideas. It's a fantastic event. And this year, it's in Atlanta from October 8th to 10th, and we're hoping everybody joins us.